Bryce Young is back in the saddle at quarterback on Sunday in Denver. Can he get it done? And does his head coach, Dave Canales, have any faith in Bryce Young? We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching our show here on YouTube and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council. Why? Because on Wednesdays throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM me on Twitter at Julian Council immediately following the game on Sunday against Denver. Get them in by about Tuesday, 5 o'clock. I'll answer those questions on the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. This episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Bryce Young is back in the saddle on Sunday as the Panthers face off against the Denver Broncos, the 4-3 Broncos, who are having a pretty good season as far as defensively, with some questions offensively as they are breaking in their rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, but a big opportunity for Bryce Young to start and potentially get his job back. I had a lot of y'all ask me over the last couple of weeks, well, the Panthers aren't winning with Andy. Andy didn't play well against Washington. Is it time to go back to Bryce Young? The Panthers got to make sure they have their guy. And here's your chance. Here's Bryce's chance to show that he can be the solution in Carolina. Not so sure the head coach truly believes in him. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. But it's Friday. And what do we do on Fridays throughout the season? I give you my 3 keys to victory against the upcoming opponent for your Carolina Panthers. Key number 1, they got to show, which is important, and build confidence in Bryce Young early in this game, which is setting up some short completions, getting him into a rhythm, making him believe that you also believe, Dave Canales, that he can be successful on Sunday in this game. We go back to week 1, week 2. The play calling, especially after the first pass of the season was picked off, didn't seem to be all that adventurous when it came to Bryce trying to throw the ball down the field. Saw a lot of short passes, not much down the field. When he did see it, they ended up in turnovers, not just in week 1, but also in week 2. Remember Chuba Hubbard getting that first down, the first of the game against the Chargers, saying, feed me. That next play, Bryce Young trying to throw it over the middle to Deontay Johnson. That gets picked off as it's thrown in double coverage. Didn't really see much outside of that as far as going down the field until Andy Dalton took over in week 3. The hope is, after watching for the most part the last 5 weeks, did get a cameo at the end of the Bears game, at the end of the Washington game on Sunday, that Bryce Young is going to have more confidence in himself, and Dave Canales is going to have more confidence in Bryce Young to get the ball down the field. But first, you got to find some easy stuff for him to build towards that. I think back to the Packers game last year, the one game where Bryce Young looked like the number 1 overall pick and looked like a franchise quarterback. It wasn't like he got out to a fiery start. It took some time to build towards the confidence that we saw in the second quarter, the third quarter, and really in the fourth quarter when he was absolutely cooking what was a terrible Packers defense, but still cooking an NFL defense, which we have not seen before then or since then, since Bryce Young has been the quarterback in Carolina. So you got to find a way to get him comfortable, to build some confidence and show confidence in him early on in this game. And this is a tough spot for Bryce to be stepping into because the Broncos are good, y'all. Like, Bryce was ranked 31st in the NFL in both EPA, that's expected points added, and QBR quarterback rating in weeks 1 and week 2. Week 1, Deshaun Watson actually was lower than Bryce, but Bryce was the lowest in the NFL in week 2. And this Broncos defense is serious. They are the number 1 ranked defense according to EPA. They are the number 2 ranked pass defense according to EPA. They are the 3rd best defense according to DVOA. fourth in scoring percentage defense per Pro Football Reference, only allowing scores on 26.8% of the drive so far this season. They are number one in ESPN's pass rush win rate. 72% of the times they're winning on their pass rushes. And ESPN doesn't like the Panthers' offensive line. They have the Panthers as 27th in the NFL in pass block win rate, whereas you look at PFF, the Panthers have the number 7 pass blocking offense, while the Broncos have the number 7 pass rushing defense. So one stat tells you the Broncos are the best and the Panthers are among the worst. Another one says they're both top 10. We'll find out on Sunday which one is true either way. This is a defense with Vance Joseph, who is in a weird situation where he used to be the Broncos head coach. Now, the ownership previously is no longer the ownership currently, as the Walton family has taken over. Sean Payton brings him back to be the DC. Weird relationship there between the Bronco fans and Vance Joseph, but I'm sure they're much happier now with him as the DC, considering how well this defense has played. 5th best pressure percentage in the NFL, according to Pro Football Reference, and they're 2nd in the National Football League with 28 sacks. So Bryce Young stepping into a situation where he needs to build some confidence early and have confidence shown in him by his head coach. But this is going to be a tough task against a very good Broncos defense, and probably not the spot where you want Bryce Young to come back and get his second opportunity here in Carolina. Number 2. Gotta run the ball. This goes towards the whole building confidence and taking pressure off of Bryce Young. The Broncos, while they are the number 1 ranked defense per EPA, number 2 ranked defense per EPA passing, they are the number 13th ranked run defense per EPA. And that's an opportunity for Carolina, who has been a team that can run the football when they want to run the football. Now, week 1, week 2, when Bryce was starting quarterback, they did not run the ball well. They only had 74 yards rushing on average in those 2 games. In the last 5 weeks of Andy Dalton, they're averaging 123 yards rushing per game, which is, of course, far better than what we saw weeks 1 and weeks 2. Now, the biggest issue was staying on the field. And this is something that Dave Canales talked about earlier. He also talked about it a couple weeks ago after they played against the Bears, where they're 0-7 on 3rd and manageable. Maybe that was a Falcons game. Either way, a game recently where they're 0-7 on 3rd down and manageable. Couldn't stay on the field. Hard to get to some of the run calls, some of the other plays that you want to get to if you can't stay out there. And they were 2 of 22 on 3rd down with Bryce Young earlier this year. Since then, they're 23 of 59 with Andy Dalton, which is 38.9%, but still the Panthers are only converting 30.86% of their 3rd downs this year, which is 30th in the NFL. The Broncos, by the way, are only converting less than that. They're 31st. So both teams have a tough time staying on the field. One of them has a really good defense in Denver. The other one in Carolina does not have a great defense, which we'll talk about here momentarily, but they got to find a way to convert, and they got to find a way to get some short yardage downs for Bryce, especially if they do get down to 3rd down. Get 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. Can't be any 3rd and longs, because that's where we get into trouble here when Bryce has been the quarterback so far this season. And Chuba Hubbard been outstanding, leads all rushers in the NFL with at least 50 attempts with a 62.1 rushing success rate. The Panthers, though, are only 23rd in the league in rushing attempts, have not been stubborn about running the football. That seems to be a fictional tale we were told all offseason long based off what we've seen so far through the first 7 games of this season. And number 3, don't get embarrassed on defense. This is not a good Broncos offense, much like the offenses the Panthers have played recently, like the Bears. Had not been a good offense. They have turned things around recently, I think in large part because of the opponents that they have played and the defenses they've gone against, but that was not a good offense going into that game. The Broncos, the offense also has not been great, and Bo Nix right now is ranked 22nd in the NFL in EPA. Now, by the way, Andy Dalton's ranked 24th, so Bo Nix, apparently, according to EPA, has been better than Andy Dalton. But looking at PFF, he's 30th out of 38 qualifying quarterbacks as far as quarterback rankings so far on ProFootballFocus.com. He has not been Caleb Williams, who has been really good lately. He has not been Jaden Daniels, who we barely saw last week when he got essentially knocked out of the game on the first play of that game when Washington was on offense on that 46-yard run. This is not the same guy. And even Drake May so far has looked pretty good around a terrible team in New England. Bo Nix has had his ups, he's had his downs, but really it's been pretty middling based off of those numbers. The Broncos overall on offense, they are the 25th rated offense according to EPA, 24th offensive DVOA in the NFL. They're 31st on 3rd down, converting 26.3% 57% of them. The Broncos are 21st red zone offense, so the Panthers aren't a great red zone defense. 28th now, giving up 70% of their red zone drives are turning into touchdowns. This is not a great offense. The Panthers are not a great defense. Talked about it yesterday with Sarah Bettinger of Locked On Broncos. Movable a force versus stoppable force versus movable object. Like, that's what we got going on here on Sunday. Looking at the Panthers defense versus the Broncos offense. Don't get embarrassed, man. Just find a way to finally get guys on the ground, and maybe they get a little bit healthier. Jadeveon Clowney appears like he's going to be back on Sunday. Maybe get to see Jordan Fuller out there as well. That will certainly help the Carolina Panthers' cause against the Broncos. So don't get embarrassed on defense. Got to find a way to run the ball, take some pressure off of Bryce, and then you got to show confidence in him and build confidence early on when it comes to Bryce Young playing at quarterback against a very good Broncos defense on Sunday there in the Mile High City. Now, speaking of confidence in Bryce Young, I'm not sure Dave Canales has any confidence in Bryce Young. Why? Well, have you ever listened to the man talk about Bryce Young, or at least talk around the subject? We'll talk about it here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and of course right here in the Old North state of North Carolina. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So here's how it works. Step 1. Drink pre-alcohol. Step 2, drink responsibly. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On NFL at checkout. ZBiotics is back with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. Bryce Young is going to get a second chance on Sunday in Denver, and I've seen plenty of you who are excited about Bryce getting this opportunity. The Panthers getting to find out maybe again or for real this time whether he can actually be the long-term answer at quarterback here in Carolina. And there's also some of you who are not excited at all, and you think that Bryce Young is a bust. The Panthers completely got it wrong, and a lot of evidence points to you being right. There's another person who I don't think is excited at all about Bryce Young playing on Sunday, and unfortunately, that's the head coach, Dave Canales. Why do I say that? Well, have you ever listened to what this man says and also look at what he does? Like, press conferences, they can be beneficial when it comes to getting information about injuries and some other stuff there if coaches are willing to be open. But recently being the last 5 weeks since he benched Bryce Young, Dave Canales has not been very open about really anything at all. In particular, why Bryce Young is not his quarterback. He has talked ad nauseum about this is about the team, it's about Andy Dalton, and has skated around every single question that's been asked about Bryce Young, his future here in Carolina, and what exactly the plan is and was when he decided to bench him after week 2, 2 atrocious performances against the Saints and against the Chargers. So going back to all of that makes me believe that he's not really into this whole situation of Bryce Young going to play on Sunday. Let's go back to Monday. We talked about this on Tuesday's episode, some of these quotes when going back over the film and Dave Canales having some questions asked about Bryce Young. He was asked on whether the organization needs to get Bryce Young on the field to know whether he can be a franchise quarterback. Steve Reed of the Associated Press asked him that question, and this was Dave's answer on Monday. Quote, right now we're focused on the Broncos. Andy's playing this week. That's really where our focus is at. All those other conversations are hypothetical conversations that definitely Dan Morgan, Brant Tillis, and I that we'll all need to have. But right now, we're focused on playing the Broncos and focused on getting Andy to take another step in terms of getting us back to good football. Then Steve followed up asking, have y'all lost confidence in Bryce Young? He said, this is about Andy Dalton. This is about playing the Broncos. This is about taking strides with our group that we have in. That's where the focus is at. So not answering yes or no about whether he's lost confidence in Bryce Young, just saying that it's about Andy. It's about team. It's about the Broncos. That's where my focus is at. Okay, well, do you need him to say yes? Do you need him to say no? Because clearly, when after 2 weeks, when you were brought here to work with the guy, he plays terrible, worse than we had ever seen before, and you move on from him and put in Andy, and you're asked every single week about, will Bryce get another opportunity? You keep saying, this is Andy's job. Said it on Sunday, said it on Monday, and I know he said it was Bryce's job. Then the next day said, actually, no, it's not Bryce's job. He has not done that flip-flop when it comes to Andy Dalton just yet, or maybe at all. We'll see what happens this season. But asked about whether Bryce needs to play or whether he has lost confidence, Bryce, on Monday, he said, that's hypothetical. This is about Andy. It's about the team. That's where my focus is at. Not wanting to answer a single question directly about Bryce Young. Now, we have heard this line multiple times from Dave Canales that Andy Dalton gives him the best chance to win. And after the clunkers on offense at Chicago, the clunker on offense this past weekend in Washington, the 2 interceptions, one of them being a pick six, the other one not being his fault, but there was some 2 interceptions the week prior against Atlanta. One of them that really cost him the game there on that drive where they were down 28-20. Does Andy really still give you the best opportunity to win? And he said, quote, if you look at the collection of the games that he's played, there's been some really good situational passing that has come out of it. We've had some explosive plays come out of it. The offense has run smoothly for the most part. I'd love for us as a group, Andy included, to find a way to finish. And you go back to it. Good situational passing. Week 1, week 2. That did not exist with Bryce Young. You talk about explosive plays. Week 1, week 2 with Bryce Young, that did not exist. You look at the offense running smoothly for the most part. Week 1, week 2 with Bryce Young, that didn't happen. So, yeah, based off of what he saw week 1, week 2, what he saw the last 5 weeks, even when things weren't great against Washington or Chicago, looked similar, yes, but those 3 games outside of that looked way better than we had ever seen with Bryce Young in the first 2 weeks. And Vashti heard of Carolina Blitzton ask, do you understand why we're asking these questions? Do you understand the fact that the organization gave up the pick swap there from 9-1? They gave up the second-round pick in 2023 that came from the Christian McCaffrey trade. They gave up the number 1 overall pick in 2024. They gave up a second-round pick next year and DJ Moore. So essentially, the Panthers swapped first-round picks. They trade away Christian McCaffrey to get assets to move up to get Bryce Young, gave up their first-round pick last year, and are giving up a 2025 second-round pick next year, and DJ Moore. Do you understand all that this organization gave up before you got here, and the fact that you benched this guy 2 weeks into this situation? Do you understand why we're asking these questions? And he said, quote, absolutely. Completely sensitive to the questions, and they're not unfounded and unbased, but from my perspective, I'm trying to get a team to continue to take strides and take steps, and that's where my focus has to be. It has to be on getting Andy to play his best football with this group, a group that has shown promise, and then a group that has shown to struggle. That's really where my focus, my energy on. So it's about the team. It's about Andy. It's about where my focus is at. Asked about Bryce Young 3 times on Monday. At no point did he ever say Bryce Young's name. In every single one of those answers, he said Andy Dalton's name. Never was asked about Andy, was asked about Bryce. Not Andy Dalton, was asked directly about Bryce Young and refused to say his name and mention Andy Dalton's name instead. Does that sound like a guy who was ever interested in going back to Bryce Young if he didn't have to? Doesn't sound like one to me. And you go to what he had to say on Wednesday once we found out the news that Andy Dalton was not going to play on Sunday. Thank God. At least he's not going to start on Sunday. He could still potentially play as they're hoping he can be the number 2 quarterback. They're going to evaluate him day to day with that right thumb injury. And thank God that him and his wife, his kids, and their dog are all fine. Hopefully the other individual or individuals that were involved in that accident are also okay. That's the most important thing here. But when talking about it, he said Bryce can his opportunity, and they'll evaluate Andy week to week. And with their decision, they'll figure it out. We'll talk to Dan, we'll talk to Brant, and then they'll do what's right for the team. It's always been about the team, what's right for the team. And he said that Bryce Young has been an absolute stud throughout this process. He's been engaged, and he's fired up to see him get another opportunity to play some football. Are you fired up to see him get another opportunity to play football? Because on Monday, when you're asked whether the organization needs to get Bryce Young on the field to know whether he can be a franchise quarterback, you said, right now we're focused on the Broncos. Andy's playing this week. That's really where our focus is at. All those other conversations are all hypothetical conversations that definitely Dan Brandt that we need to have. But right now we're focused on playing the Broncos and focused on getting Andy to take another step in terms of getting us back to good football. So are you fired up? Because on Monday, you sure as hell didn't sound like a guy fired up to ever see Bryce Young play. And when you were asked about, have you lost confidence, you said, this is about Andy. This is about playing the Broncos. This is about taking strides with our group that we have in. That's really where the focus is at. That is what you said on Monday and how you have gone about this entire thing. When we asked him at the beginning of the situation, when he benched Bryce, why he did it, he would not get into particulars. He would not say why Andy Dalton gave him a better chance to win. He would not say what the plan was. If they would ever go back to Bryce, it's always just been about Andy. It's been about the team. It's been about, well, that's the focus. He's never directly want to answer a single question or ever mention Bryce Young's name when asked directly about Bryce. This guy does not believe in Bryce Young. He does not think he's a quarterback he can win with. I don't even think he's somebody he thinks he can develop. The Panthers are going to play Bryce on Sunday. It probably won't go well because the head coach does not believe in him, and the play calling will certainly reflect that. So we'll see probably what we saw week 1 and week 2. I hope we don't see it. But when you have a head coach who has no confidence in the quarterback, no belief at all, what can you realistically expect to happen when he has had multiple opportunities to come out and say, but also do the things that he said about Bryce and done so far to Bryce, if you want to even say he's done anything to him other than just bench him. He's not interested. He does not think he's good. He does not believe in him. And, well, it's unfortunate because I'm trying to understand, why do you have this job if the only reason you got this job, when no one else in the NFL even interviewed you, why are you here when you have already moved on from the quarterback? You were brought here, theoretically, to improve. That's just one thing that's interesting to me. Maybe he saw it like, this ain't going to happen ever. I can't waste time. I got to save this team, even though the defense is complete ass and was never going to be good in the first place. Let me go ahead and bench this guy, scapegoat him, and let's try to win some football games. Wait, we can't win football games because the offense still isn't very good, and the defense has no talent and is banged up. So here we are sitting at 1-6, and damn, I got to play this quarterback that I have no faith in. So yeah, that's how Dave Canales feels. We've heard him say it. We've seen him do it. What else do you need to hear and see to believe that he clearly does not believe in Bryce Young? All right, injury report. Panthers had 21 players on it on Wednesday. The Broncos had 5. That does not bode well for Sunday. We'll talk about it here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Speaking of bets, we saw it earlier this week. It was 7.5, then it was down to 8.5, and not down, up to 8.5, and now it's at 9.5 since the Panthers revealed that Andy Dalton will not be starting on Sunday. Instead, it will be Bryce Young, and I think that's a direct reflection of how the market views Bryce Young, as this is a 9.5 point spread against the Denver Broncos, one of the worst offenses in the NFL with a rookie quarterback. Great defense, but still, that the Panthers are expected to be 9.5 point underdog at this point in time, plus 410 money line. The over-under is down to 41.5 for Sunday's matchup. You'll get started with $2 to $100 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Taking a look at the injury report heading into this game on Sunday. Again, recording this one earlier on Thursday than I had typically done so far this season, heading up to Charlottesville. Don't ask why. You know why. I'm a sicko. I'm going to go watch Tar Heels lose to Virginia in the South's oldest rivalry. Got a buddy up there at Darden, so it's a free trip to Charlottesville and never really been to Charlottesville outside the one time when I was in 5th grade. We were driving up to D.C., and we stopped there to go to like Mitchie's Tavern and then go to Monticello and all that. So as an adult, ready to go to Charlottesville, get into some wineries and watch the Heels get their ass kicked on Saturday. Cannot wait. So doing this earlier than I like to do. At least want to have the Thursday injury report so I can see the trends of who didn't practice on Wednesday, then who did on Thursday, and be able to see, okay, who's trending towards playing. But looking at it on Wednesday, my God, we know it's bad, but 21 players on the injury report heading into this Week 8 matchup against the Broncos. Meanwhile, in Denver, they have 5 on Wednesday on the injury report. Pat Surtain, that's the big one. We talked about it with Sarah Bettinger yesterday of Locked On Broncos. He was back out there as a full participant on Wednesday, probably going to be the same on Thursday and Friday. So, yeah, he's getting back, and we'll see the matchup as J.C. Horn was taken before him. Not really a direct matchup as we talk about all the time. Oh, you got the quarterbacks going against each other. No, they don't play defense. They only play offense. So, yes, you're looking at the quarterback matchup, but it's not really a matchup between those two guys. We'll look at the cornerback matchup as JC and Pat Surtain both expected to play on Sunday. But looking at it, Andy Dalton did not practice on Wednesday. Not a surprise at all. What was surprising to me, actually, was the fact that he said he felt fine overall. The only thing that bothered him was his thumb. And after the initial shock of the injury or of the car accident, that's when he kind of felt the soreness in his thumb, so he will not play on Sunday. At least he's not expected to play on Sunday. The Panthers are taking this day to day with this thumb injury this week, and they're taking the whole decision between Bryce and Andy whether he's going to play week to week. Yeah, okay. It's going to be Andy Dalton against New Orleans next Sunday, y'all. But either way, as far as looking at this week, their hope is that he can at least serve as the number 2 quarterback. If he's not, the only other quarterback that's here in Carolina is Jack Plummer, so he would be elevated to the active roster for Sunday's game, and he would be the backup, and that would probably not be the most ideal situation based on how Bryce Young's played this year and Jack Plummer, what we saw from him in the preseason, those two being your quarterback depth on Sunday. Not great, like kind of what the Dolphins have been dealing with the last couple of weeks since Tua Tagovailoa has been out, possibly. Hopefully Bryce does play well, but I just told you all the quarterback, or the coach rather, has no belief in him, so hard to believe that Bryce can have confidence in himself and there's going to be confidence put into Bryce via the play calls. We will see, though. But in any case, so if Andy Dalton is not ready to go and they do elevate Jack Plummer, there is a possibility that they have Andy as the emergency third quarterback because he has to be on the active roster. They cannot use Jack Plummer as the emergency third quarterback unless they sign him to the active roster. It cannot just be get elevated just for this one game as a standard elevation. He has to be signed to the active roster for him to be utilized as the emergency third quarterback. So the possibility could be Bryce starts, Jack Plummer's the backup, and then Andy is utilized as the emergency third quarterback, where the only time the Panthers could play him is if Bryce and Jack Plummer get injured. Not that they bench Bryce, they bench Jack. It's got to be due to injury. So that's a situation to look out for on Sunday, potentially, if Andy's not able to be the number 2 officially, that he could be the emergency third backup, just so the Panthers have that there in their back pocket. Jadeveon Clowney, shoulder injury, missed the last 2 weeks after being injured in Chicago. Full participant on Wednesday. And also, DJ Wonnum had the quad, has not practiced at all since coming to Carolina. The first outside linebacker free agent they signed. He was limited at practice on Wednesday, the first time that he and Clowney, the projected starters at outside linebacker, have practiced together here in Carolina. But don't get your hopes up as far as Sunday goes. Clowney, yes, looks like he's going to play just based off of being a full participant after not really practicing the last 2 weeks, where Wonnum, limited, has not practiced. It's got to get into football shape. I don't know what kind of conditioning he's been doing over the course of his absence here since he signed in Carolina, but I'm not thinking he's going to play on Sunday. I don't think he'll play next Sunday. I don't even think Munich would be the time. It really feels like after the bye week, giving him some time to really get caught up, that would be the time for him against Chiefs to officially make his debut in Carolina. But we'll see. They had Jonathan Brooks on a timeline a little bit quicker than that one, but they also seem to be a little bit more confident as far as where he was at physically than DJ Wonnum. So TBD on that whole situation with Clowney. Looks like he'll be back. Adam Thielen, his 21-day window to return from IR has opened up, and that's important as the Panthers are approaching the trade deadline. That is a name you would think next week. That would be the time. When they're heading to Munich, the week after that, where the deadline is on the 5th, that Tuesday at 4 p.m. Like, they're going to already be over in Germany. They got to make a decision on who they're going to trade by the end of next week. So Adam Thielen is certainly one of those names. And if Adam Thielen is healthy enough, he is a guy who can be shipped out of Carolina. So limited on Wednesday with a hamstring injury. It would be nice to see him play on Sunday for all the other suitors out there, but also to give Bryce a chance, because the receivers weren't great last week. Deontay Johnson didn't seem to be that engaged. I wonder with the ankle, the situation with the team, I don't know what's going on there. He also did not practice on Wednesday as well. Now, they said it was not injury-related, but also listed a couple of nagging injuries, more so rest for him on Wednesday, not practicing. But those two guys need him out there to help out Bryce and take some pressure off Lee Gett and off of Coker, who didn't really do anything last week. Or, I mean, Coker and we saw Lee Gett both play pretty well, especially in that final drive in the first half against Atlanta. But the last 3 weeks have been leaving a lot to be desired there at receiver. Taylor Moton, limited with that elbow on Wednesday, missed the last 2 weeks with that elbow injury. He had been DNP, did not practice the last 2 weeks. The fact that he was at least limited on Wednesday, that is encouraging. We'll find out certainly probably after you've already listened to the show whether he will be able to go on practice on Thursday, and then Friday will get an official designation for him. So hopefully he'll be able to get back out there, especially against a very good pass rush. Josh Diamond was among the lowest graded. I believe he was the lowest graded player on the Panthers offense, according to Pro Football Focus, in the loss at Washington. So, yeah, gotta get Taylor Moton. Good thing is Brady Christensen was the highest. So he has played well so far, filling in for Austin Corbett there at center. Jordan Fuller also had his 21-day window opened up on a Wednesday. He was limited with a hamstring injury. It would be nice to get him back out there. As you look at a couple guys defensively who did not practice, A'Shawn Robinson missed last week with a knee injury, did not practice on Wednesday. Dane Jackson made his debut after having a hamstring injury back in training camp. He did not practice with a hamstring. Nick Scott, who's been filling in at starting safety for Jordan Fuller, also has been terrible. He has a hamstring. He did not practice. Just hamstring after hamstring after hamstring after hamstring after hamstring. I mean, my God, I don't know what's going on here. If these guys aren't stretching, if it's training staff's responsibility, this is just insane. I've not seen this amount of this soft tissue muscle injuries that we've seen here this season. Dave Canales was asked about this on Wednesday by Vashti Hurd of Carolina Blitz. Have you ever been a part of a season like this? He laughed. He's like, honestly, no. I have not ever been through this much bull in my entire life as a coach. And, of course, my first time as a head coach, I'm going through it. And he said it will make him better. Well, we certainly hope that will be the case, man, because Panther fans have been building up a lot of scar tissue to be able to be better from all this. So that's an update there. Josie Jewell, hamstring/groin, and Claude and Sherilis, hamstring. They're both limited on Wednesday. Panthers had to bring up Shaq Quarterman to start at linebacker on Sunday in that loss. Would be nice to get Josie out there with Trevin Wallace, as that could be the starting linebacking pairing next year in Carolina. Tommy Trimble back, limited at practice. We'll see. He has not played in a couple of weeks after having a hamstring, or having a concussion rather, and then also a back injury popping up on him late last week. Jaden Crumedy, though, positive. Ankle, was a full practice hit on Wednesday. Had his 21-day practice window open up last week. Would be nice if he gets an opportunity, especially looking at A'Shawn Robinson. If he's not able to go, would make sense for the rookie to make his debut on Sunday in Denver. Then Raheem Blackshear got lit up on Sunday, fumbled the ball, dislocated his shoulder. Canales told us on Monday, actually checked out pretty good. Full participant on Wednesday. Do you think that you could have your shoulder dislocated on a Sunday and then come back, even work your day job on a Wednesday? Let me know if you think you can do that, because I don't know if I could, because that is something else, man. These guys, God bless them. That is yikes. All right. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe, follow the show free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesday I will be back answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter and get those questions in immediately following the game. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole, and as always, keep pounding. I'll talk to y'all live here on YouTube on Sunday evening following the Carolina Panthers, fingers crossed, win and Bryce Young's redemption against the Broncos.